Hey there, fourth grade. This is Mr. Campbell. Today we're going to open up our math books to page 57. We're going to be doing lesson 2.6, which is subtract greater numbers. Now, if you remember our last lesson, we would start in the ones place. We start at the top number and work our way down. If the top number is smaller than the bottom number in a subtraction problem, then we have to go next door and regroup. And today we're going to follow those exact same principles to continue working on the subtraction. The numbers are just going to be a little bit larger, but we're going to follow the exact same steps that we worked on last time. All right. So we're going to do some practice problems together. Then I'll give you a chance to work on your own. But at the end of this lesson, we want you to be able to say, I can use the standard algorithm and place value to subtract whole numbers. And remember, standard algorithm is just the steps that we take to solve a problem. And we're going to focus on place value again today as we work on these different problems. All right. So let's go ahead and turn over to page 58 and check out what we've got in store for today. So if you are not on page 58, I'm going to have you pause your video right now. Make sure that you are on page 58 with us. Make sure you've got a pencil ready to go. I've got an extra piece of paper that I'm going to be doing some writing on a little bit later as well. So if you need to grab some extra paper or a whiteboard, you can also do that. Let's go ahead and read our question today. It says, 3 of the country's most scenic national parks are in Alaska. How much larger is the area of Gates of the Arctic than the combined area of Denali and Kenai fjords? So we're going to go ahead and put these two together first. So when we take a look here at our map, I see that I've got these 3 points on here, and that's where we're going to get our numbers from. So we're going to go with Denali is right up here, and then Kenai. This is called a fjord. It's in Frozen if you've watched that before, but I'm going to just go ahead and call it Kenai for right now so that it'll be a little easier. So they want to know if we put these two together, all right, how much larger is the Gates of the Arctic than these two? So this is a two-step problem that we're going to have to do here. All right. So the first step is to add Denali and Kenai together. And so that's what they've got over here. They took their 19,182 and they're adding the 2,711 together to find out how big these two are. And the measurement we're going to use is square kilometers. That's just for us to be able to figure out the size and measure in kilometers. All right. So when we add those together, we start in the ones place. 2 plus 1 is 3, which is why they've got that right there. We move over to the tens place. 8 plus 1 is 9. Now I'm going to move to my hundreds place, and 1 plus 7, it comes out to 8. And then 9 plus 2 is 11. And if you remember, when we've added large numbers before, I can't put an 11 in one place value. So this is the thousands place value. I can only put one digit there. So the other digit actually comes over here, and we have to add that to our 10,000s. So my 11 gets separated into those two place values. 1 plus 1 is going to give us 2. So what they're saying is Denali and Kenai together is 21,893 square miles. All right. This is all to get us these very large numbers because today our practice is going to be subtracting those numbers. So look what they've done here. They've given us a bar model. Our first one is going to be the Gates of the Arctic, which is the large one. And that's 34,287. And they're saying if we took out that 21,893 that we just figured out, what's left over, which is why we have this A right here. The A just means we want to know how much area is going to go in that space. So we need a number to fill in the gap. These bars should be the same, which means that they should be both equal 34,287 if I add these two together and that one. So the way that we're going to solve this is subtract these two together. So let's go ahead and check out step number 1. For step number 1, it says find 34,287 minus 21,893. Before we do anything else, will you notice real quick, they've written this out in a special way that I keep talking to you about during your independent practice. And there's a special name for this when it's all in one straight line like that. Do you remember what it is? I hope you remember that it's called horizontal. This is written out horizontally, which means it's like the horizon where the sun would set, right? And it's a straight line, just like the horizon. It's going across, all right? But when we do this, it helps us to set them up like this. Do you remember the term for this? I hope you remember it's vertical. Vertical means up and down. And it helps us out to make sure that our place values all line up when we're doing that. So step one is telling us to start in the ones place, which we already know that. Every time we get started on subtraction, we start in the ones. And whenever we're doing subtraction, we always start at the top and work our way down. We can't flip these numbers around. We always start top to bottom. So 7 minus 3. Well, I can do that because the top number is larger, right? If I have 7 and I take away 3, I'm left with a 4. Now, step two is going to be subtract the tens, hundreds, thousands, and 10,000s. Whoa, they just jumped right in there, didn't they? We started off just with the ones, but now we're going to move on to our other place values. So here I have 8 minus 9. And 8 is smaller than 9, so I can't do it. So should I just flip it around and say, well, what's 9 minus 8? No way, I can't do that. What do I need to do? I need to go next door and regroup. So they crossed off our 2 and left a 1. And the 10 from that actually comes over to create an 18. Now we can say 18 minus 9 is 9. All right. Now we're going to come over here. I've got a 1 left over. 1 minus 8. I can't do that either. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to go next door and regroup. I'm going to take 1 over to here to create an 11. And when I took that 1 away, the 4 becomes a 3. So now I have 11 minus 8, and that's going to give me a 3. In my thousands, I've got 3 minus 1. Well, the top number is larger than the bottom, so I do not need to regroup here. 3 minus 1 is 2. And then my last one is 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, so our total was 12,394. That's how much larger the gates of the Arctic is. Step 3 is going to tell us that one way that we could do is we could do what's called inverse operations. And what that really means is when I took these numbers up here, I started with my 34,287 and subtracted this part to find my area right here. And I'm going to go ahead and write that in real fast for us. So that's 12,394, right? We just solved that down here. What they're saying is if I add these together, it should equal the same as the number up here. And so they've shown us down here how to add all those together and what that would be. You can check that out right now. But that's what they're telling us is this is just a way for us to check the subtraction problem that we just did. All right. Well, we've been practicing this subtraction for a while now, so let's go ahead and actually get into doing some of this together where they don't give us the answers and we might have to use that brain a little bit more. Let's turn over to page 59. Here we are on page 59, and again, if you're not there, pause your video, get a pencil out so that way you can make sure you're following along and really get this practice because this is the part where we do it together, and in just a little bit, you can look at the bottom of your page, you're going to be practicing these large numbers on your own. I want you to be as prepared as possible, which is why I want you to make sure you've got your paper and pencil ready to go. So we're going to start off with number 3. I'm going to go ahead and grab some extra room because, again, if I were to put these vertical, I'm not going to have a lot of space here. So I need some area to be able to write it down. I actually prefer getting a piece of paper instead of a whiteboard so that way you can always show your teacher later what work you were doing. It just helps us to be able to see where there's any areas that maybe you need a little extra help. But let's go ahead. I've got mine. If you're going to grab yours, pause the video, do that, and then come on back over. I'm going to start off with my first number, which is 139,484. And if you remember from our last video, I make sure as I write this out, I'm giving a good, healthy amount of space between each of my place values. I do not want these to be on top of each other because I know I'm going to be working with these numbers. So I'm going to space them out. Now that I'm done with my first large number, now I need to look over here. And do you remember the trick that I told you to making sure we get our place values correct? When we're rewriting from a horizontal problem to a vertical problem, we're going to start with the ones place and then work our way the opposite direction. So I'm going to start in the ones place, and so I need a 1, and then I need a 9 in the tens place, a 6 in the hundreds place, I need a 6 in the thousands place, a 1 in the 10,000s, and a 1 in the hundred thousands. And as I do that, I make sure each one of these lines up with the number up on top. So that way, when I subtract it, everything's organized, everything's nice and neat. I'm just ready to get going. Can I ask you a quick question, fourth grade? Where do we start in a subtraction problem like this? And I want you to actually answer this out loud, just quietly to yourself. Where do we start? We always start over in the ones place, right? All the way over here. And again, I keep reminding you because it's so important. We always have to work from the top down. And that's so important because when we've got that smaller number on top, I can't just flip it around and do it a different way. I have to follow the same steps. So here we've got 4 minus 1. Well, 4 is larger than 1, right? So if I've got 4 and I take 1 away, how many am I left with? I'm going to be asking you these questions. I'd love for you to answer them quietly to yourself because I want you to be thinking about it. But 4 minus 1 is going to give me a 3. Now I come to my tens place and I've got 8 minus 9. Can I do that? No way. The 8 is smaller than my 9. I can't do this. So just like we've been talking about, I need to go next door. And when I go next door, I'm going to take one of those away. If I had 4 and I'm taking 1 away, I'm left with a 3. So that goes up on top. That 1 that I'm taking away, 4 minus 1, that 1 comes next door to go in front of the number that I had here. So now I have an 18. And now I can say, well, what's 18 minus 9? So let's go ahead and count backwards. I'm going to start at 18 and count backwards. So 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. Oh, which makes total sense. I remember that 9 plus 9 equals 18. This is a doubles fact. And so I can turn that around and say, well, 18 minus 9 is 9. Oh, man. I got to remember those doubles facts. It will help me to go a little bit quicker. Now that I'm done here, I can go next door. And in my hundreds place, I've got 3 minus 6. Well, if I have 3, can I take 6 away? No way. So again, I got to go next door, take 1 away from here. If I had 9 and I take 1 away, I'm left with an 8. That 1 doesn't just go away, though. It comes over to create a 13. The 1 goes in front of the number that I had here. So now I have 13. And what's 13 minus 6? Well, again, I'm going to go ahead and start at 13, and I'm going to count back 6 times. So 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Oh, it's 7. Okay. So I'll put my 7 there. In my thousands place, I've got 8 minus 6. 8 minus 6. So again, is this top number bigger than the bottom? Yeah, I don't need to regroup on this one, right? It's easy enough for me already. So 8 minus 6, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So I need to put a 2 in my thousands place. Now I've got 3 minus 1. Well, I can always just count back 1 time, and that's going to be a 2. And then 1, and if I take away 1 more, is 0, right? So my answer is 22,793. Again, I hope that this is just reinforcing what we've already been working on because we've done quite a few problems already very similar to this. All right, let's go ahead and check out we're going to skip number 4 for right now and go down to number 6. All right, so we already answered number 3. Now we're going to go down to number 6. And I'm going to keep my paper out because I'm going to rewrite it. So I've got 281,311. Nice and spaced out. Ooh, these got a little close together, but I want to make sure I've got that space. Now, here's why this is going to be so important. If I were to just go, okay, now I need to write my next number. So I've got 3, 4, 2, and then my 7. Did I line up my place values? Why is there nothing over here where my 1s and my 10s are? I can't do that. This is a totally different number. This is 342,000, and I want 3,427. This is why that trick that I showed you before, and I've shown you it many times, I always call it out, it's so important. I'm going to start in my 1s place with the 7, and then I need a 2 in the 10s, and a 4 in my hundreds, and a 3 in my thousands. This step by step will make sure my place values all line up. And it doesn't matter. Every time, if I just follow the same steps, it helps me to not get too lost or confused. Well, I'm going to start in the 1s place because that's always where we start. And I have 1 minus 7. If I have 1, can I take 7 away? No way, right? So I need to come over and regroup. Well, if I had 1 and I take 1 away, what's left over here? 1 minus 1 is 0. And that 1 actually comes over to make this into an 11. And 11 minus 7 is going to give me 4. When I come over here to my tens place, I have 0 minus 2. If I have nothing, can I take 2 away? No. So again, I have to regroup. I go next door. And I'm going to say, well, if I had 3 and I take 1 away, then there's only 2 left. And that 1 that I took away comes in front of here. So it's not just a 1, it's a 10 now. And 10 minus 2 is 8. In my hundreds place, I have 2 minus 4. 2 minus 4. If I have 2, can I take 4 away? No way. So I got to come next door and take 1 away from here. And just like before, if I had 1 and I take 1 away, I'm left with 0. But now over here, I've got 12. And 12 minus 4 is going to be another 8. All right, we're getting somewhere now. In my thousands place, I have 0, and I need to take away 3. Well, 0 is smaller than 3, so I'm going to have to regroup from here. And my 8 becomes a 7. That 1 turns this into a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. But now check out what happens here. Again, we made sure we didn't start over here. Our bottom numbers only go to there. Well, what do? Do I just ignore these extra numbers? No, there's actually zeros in each of these place values because I can put as many zeros as I want in front of my number and it doesn't actually change. This is still 3,427. So is this, and so is this. So then I can say, well, what's 7 take away nothing? Well, it's still a 7. What's 2 take away nothing is still a 2. So that answer would be 277,884. Okay. This is making some sense to me, right? Well, I'm going to have you pause your video because I want you to try out number 4 and number 5 on your own. And I'm going to go over these a little bit quicker, but I want you to go ahead and take the time to try these 2 out. Then, once you're done, I'm going to make sure that I come back in here and walk through these, and I want you to see if you got the right answer. But I also want you to follow along and make sure that the answers are all making sense as you go. So go ahead and pause your video right now to do number 4 and do number 5. If you haven't paused your video, please do that right now. I'm going to start off with number 4. So I've got 2, 1, 6, 4, 1,398. All right. I'm going to subtract these 2 things. And when I start over here, if I have 4, can I take 8 away? No way. I got to go next door and regroup. So I take 1 away from there. That becomes 14. 14 minus 8 is going to give me 6. In my tens place, 5 minus 9. Well, that top number is smaller than the bottom number, so I can't do it. I go next door, and I regroup from there to turn this into a 15. 15 minus 9 is going to also be 6. In my hundreds place, I have 0 minus 3, and I can't do that. So when I regroup, I leave a 1 there. My other 1 comes over. 10 minus 3 is going to give me a 7. And then in my thousands place, 1 minus 1 is 0. So my answer is 766. Now, when I'm going through this, if you didn't find that answer, or if you made a mistake, I hope that you're following along and looking and going, oh, I see where that mistake was. I see where I made my error, because you're not going to have me checking your work in just a minute when you do this on your own. So it's really important that you make sure you're checking your work, which means you're following along. If there's something that I do that you didn't do, you pause the video and then you make that change so you can see and actually write it out to make sure that you don't make this same mistake twice. Well, here is our last problem we're going to do together. And when I start in my ones place, 5 minus 6, I can't do it. The top number is bigger. So I go next door to regroup, which means I take 1 from there and put it in front to make a 15. 15 minus 6, well, that's going to be 9. In my tens place, I've got 2 minus 7. 2 minus 7. Well, 2 is smaller than 7, so that's not going to work. So I go next door and I take 1 from there, and it becomes a 12 now. So 12 minus 7. And 12 minus 7 is 5. In my hundreds place, I've got 6 minus 2. I don't need to regroup here because that top number is already larger than the bottom. So 6 minus 2 is going to be 4. All right. In the thousands place, I've got 9 minus 5. And 9 minus 5 is going to give me another 4. My last one, 4 minus 2. Well, 4 is larger than 2, so I do not need to regroup anywhere. My final answer is going to be 24,459. All right. Again, I'm going through these a little quicker because we've gone through these types of problems before. But today I want you to make sure that you're going slow. If you need to come back and rewatch how to do any of these problems, this is a great example. And examples just show you step by step. You can use an example to follow each of the steps on a different problem, but you just use the numbers that you're doing on that next problem. It can help you to go back and rewatch to remember, where do we start? What happens if my top number is smaller than the bottom? What happens if it's just a larger number on top? These are all questions that you should answer to yourself as you solve your problems. Today, you are going to be working on numbers 7 through 14. All right. These are all lined up for you, so none of them are horizontal. They are all written vertically, which is awesome for you because they've got all those lined up. But if you need more space, grab an extra piece of paper. Don't use a whiteboard because when you use that whiteboard, especially on your independent practice, sometimes we write too big or we have to erase it before we can show a teacher. So make sure you just write it in an extra piece of paper, or if there's enough space for you, right here. Well, great job today, fourth grade. We are going to continue building off of this lesson to continue working on adding and subtracting large numbers using that place value and our standard algorithm. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. We will see you next time.